What do you think about what's going on today, man? What's happening with you, Adam? What's happening? Not even an intro today. No intro of any kind. Just
no, we're just hopping on. No, it's been a crazy day just because we got all the holiday gunk going around our house, and thankfully we've already gone through the whole COVID thing, so wasn't that, but the kids all got colds and
Same
just
here.
trying to recover.
We're trying to recover. We spent the week last week up at the cabin, for the snow, and we went with some friends, and they brought their kids, and the wonderful gift they gave us was their kids being sick, so we all got sick. And
yep, same with us. Yeah, it's same with us. But yeah, no, it was a good holiday. Did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, it was a great holiday. I mean, my wife always dreads it because she's got we have Christmas, and then 3 days later we have her birthday. So it's, growing up, she always had that issue, but we always try to make it special for her. Like, no, Christmas is Christmas and wife is wife, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, but
Yep,
she wanted a white Christmas, and we gave it to her.
Yeah, it was very cold here, so I'm glad that's over with.
But so here we are. We're like 3 days in the new year, and again, it's something that I don't think is a big surprise to you or myself. We've talked about this in the past of this big, hey, Fanatics is now going to acquire Topps.
Yeah, it's pretty big news, and it's weird because I was I've heard from a number of people that Upper Deck was really kind of the first in line that Fanatics was going to chase, and that could still happen. But I think seeing that Topps has gone and worked something out with Fanatics after everything fell through with their Muds acquisition and
yep,
the SPAC that was supposed to happen not coming to fruition because Fanatics went and became the Death Star for the hobby here. It's cool to see that the history and the legacy of what Topps brings is still going to continue. I think
that's kind of what when I tweeted it right away, and I saw that news, which came from the Card Foundation guys originally when I saw them on their group. So I went and looked it up real quick, read an article, and I posted it. And that's the first thing that came to my mind was, at least we still keep the Chrome line, the finest line, Bowman, maybe probably Stadium Club, hopefully, whatever else. I mean, these are basically in the industry, they're household names.
Right. I agree with that 100%. I think it's the most important piece of this, and for collector's sake, right? It's not from a money standpoint or a value standpoint, but from a history standpoint.
It's like WWE acquiring, somebody's video library, basically, for keeping it for, historical purposes, basically.
I think it's a little bit more than that. I think the WWE has done that a lot, right? They've gone and they've bought up all the territory libraries and stuff like that, but that stuff is long gone. I think Topps has been going strong for 100 years. It feels like, and it's something that to lose all of that history just because of licensing deals going the way that they have. I think it's really cool that we're getting a much different sort of approach now with Fanatics. We're aiming for consolidation and sort of speaking on really bringing a new sort of approach to the hobby, but also being able to incorporate some of the history that Topps has, I think is awesome.
Because they're basically, according to the article I read, they're basically just acquiring the Topps name and the sports entertainment division. It's not touching the candy department. It's not touching the gift card line they have. So it's going to be interesting to see what is left of Topps, as far afterwards,
Yeah, it's interesting because I think those lines aren't actually small potatoes. Like, they do a lot of business in those lines, so it was interesting to see how those all kind of work out. But I also think that it's clear that the Fanatics wanted very specific pieces of Topps's lines, and I think it's for the main reason that it's the IP that they bring to the table. It's impossible to replicate that. And I was saying on Twitter that there isn't another brand that's as household of a name as Topps, as you earlier mentioned.
No.
But I think, you think about Upper Deck as well. Upper Deck is very synonymous with cards, right? Because the people that are making the news, that are writing the news right now, all grew up with that as they were kids. The whole Panini thing is very recent. And I think there's this recency bias that I think exists with Panini, because it's like, hey, these guys have brought the most value in their cards recently. I think it's just kind of a misnomer in that respect, because I just don't think that they've reached the level of a Topps or an Upper Deck in that stage, because the average American still associates baseball cards and football cards and basketball cards with Topps and Upper Deck, not with Panini. Now, if Panini had said we're going to be Donruss, that may be a different story because everybody knows Donruss. Like, I think there's still more brand loyalty to that name. But this is interesting. I'm curious to see how this all plays out because I don't think we're done yet. I think there's still so many years that exist before everything kind of falls, all the dominoes sort of fall. And Upper Deck specifically, having hockey, Panini having football and basketball, and now WWE and UFC and NASCAR and all those things until that point, there's still a lot of pages left to be written, right? So I think it's going to be interesting to see. And also, like, this whole Fanatics thing about consolidation, right? They want to consolidate all these different aspects of the hobby, whether it's check out my cards type, fulfillment or grading or retail or all of these different things that I think are aspects of the hobby right now, and disparate parties own those different things. This is, presenting a whole new situation for them where they're like, hey, we want to be the one-stop shop. And I think that's awesome because I think for a long time, certain places have had undue influence over a lot of things that happen for consumers in this hobby. And I think that Fanatics is going to try and turn that around, or at least make it work for them. I don't know if it'll be better or worse for the collectors yet, because we don't know the extent of it, but I think this is a really interesting sort of time. Like, how do they establish themselves over the next few years, knowing that this is the way it's going to be, and this is how we're going to expect it to be come 2026 when everything is under their control.
And this is phase one in like setting up the stuff, that needs to be done in order to, complete that goal of theirs of having a one-stop shop type of place. So if you get a household name like Topps, that's a no-brainer. You want to go after Upper Deck. I mean, that's going to be, you get the Jordan line, you get the Tiger Woods line, you get the, LeBron line. I mean, that's a pretty big thing as well. I mean, where does it stop from there? You think after this? Do you think that they go after like a Beckett, an SGC?
Oh, I don't know.
If they want to have an in-house grading company like that, wouldn't it be smart just to buy an existing company?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think most companies these days don't want to build; they want to acquire. Right? It's all through M&A, and it's really hard to build, right? Especially when you can buy it for the same cost as it costs to build it and make it successful. I think it would be wiser to buy something than to build it. Just because of the complexities of those aspects of things. But, do they buy a Beckett? I don't like, I would say like, that's a really tough sort of question, because we know that Collectors Universe with PSA and everything, like if they're looking to buy a grading unit, like there's Beckett and then there's Beckett grading and there's PSA. Everything else is kind of just secondary. I'm not a grader, so I don't really know kind of how that all plays out, but a grading enthusiast. But I would say that from a standpoint of notoriety, it's PSA and Beckett do the most of that. And I think Beckett's grading business is one that would be of interest to somebody like Fanatics trying to build their own sort of spin on things.
Because that would be an easier acquisition, I think, of going after a Beckett grading service, which would keep it away from a publication as well. So publication's one side of it, the grading aspect's another.
I think the publication is worthless, honestly. And it's like, I mean, magazines these days, and even if they're digital, and I mean, from a checklist perspective, sure, like that's your domain. Beckett has a lot of, really important sort of data. But I just think from a magazine standpoint, and their commentary on the hobby has become very, very, very unimportant, and they've lost a lot of that influence. Now, there's still certain things that they do have influence around, but grading is the majority of their business, right? It is the only part of their business that matters. And I've been an outspoken critic of Beckett for decades now. I think that they have done more harm to this hobby over these pre-boom years than any other entity in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons. That's a whole nother conversation.
Maybe that's a prime reason for someone like Fanatics to pick that up as and integrate it into their ultimate game plan here to redefine how it should be done.
I mean, from a, like, I think that there are certain aspects of a hobby company that need to be considered, right? There is the production, there is the distribution, there is the retail or selling element of it. There's a secondary market, and then there's the social media aspect. And I think that Panini, of all of the companies, has the best social media platform. They're the ones that really spend the most time on it. And I think from a standpoint of integrating Beckett as their social media platform, taking all of those people, I think that's really the most that there is value there, I think. But I think overall the grading is the most important. I think overall there's just a lot going on, and I think Fanatics has a lot of stuff that they need to consider in building out their ultimate evil empire, if you will. But I think it's one that
fitting that we keep making Star Wars references when that's what one of the license of top. So
right. Well, that's I think that's important. No, I think it's really important to also consider like how much like fragmented siloed industries there are within the hobby, and how much a consolidation would be built into that, and how much that could help in streamlining a lot of these things. It could make it more difficult for collectors. It could be more difficult for competition to thrive. But I think overall, it removes a lot of those question marks that I think exist within the hobby around like the undue influence that distributors have over pricing, things like the online retailers, how they sort of negotiate things and can sometimes be accused of things like price fixing and other things like that.
Sure.
If you take those elements out of it, or the grading aspect, which I think is a gigantic conflict of interest across every aspect of their business, you know, if you take those things and consolidate those under one roof, does it remove some of those conflicts of interest? I don't know. It's like there's so many different question marks here that I think we need to sort of figure out.
Can't hurt it.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's been talked about that this is the article that I read that claims is about just north of $500 million acquisition.
Yeah, that's what.
I see Brian Gray from Leaf is not buying into that, according to his tweet. He thinks it's north of a billion.
Oh, I think there's way too much to say that it would be well below that. I don't think the valuation is there at all. I think their valuation is with the SPAC acquisition was less than that. So I mean, like I don't think
the SPAC acquisition giving it an estimated value of 1.3 billion on that company.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was wrong there.
So that was the article that read about before everything kind of fell under. It was evaluated at 1.3 billion. So with that dissolving, I wonder if that obviously it's dramatically hurt the value. And I'm betting that Fanatics probably came in and got a great deal.
But you also have to remember that the SPAC acquisition included the candy and the
This is true.
The gift card lines, yeah, those were parts of it. So I think north of 500 billion or 500 million. Yeah, I think that's within reason. I still think it's a little south of a billion. I think that's a humongous number. I don't know if I can support that. But Brian Gray would be more close to this than anybody that
absolutely.
I could speak to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping he's agreed to come on and do an episode with me at one point when they get their new wrestling line comes out. But we'll figure that out. But
Brian's an outspoken dude. He'll tell you the truth. So if he's heard it,
I've run into him a couple times at the Hollywood show in Burbank, California. At one point, him and Brian Wallace from Benchwarmers were kind of butting around, going in and doing all the sticker stuff, and they would come by to a lot of the clients and have them sign stickers like a Richard Roundtree or a John Schneider, and have them and put it in part of their Leaf signature series type stuff.
Yeah, I think that the hobby as it stands right now and the hobby as it will be in 2026 will be so entirely different. I can't even it's like looking at a car now versus a car 20 years from now. It's going to be unrecognizable to us as a car, I think. And I think the reason for that is because Fanatics has 5 years to really, or now 4 years to really sort of ramp up their vision for what that is. And Josh Luber, who is taking this over, I think if you've read his essay, and I have a couple of times because I think it's really interesting stuff, like he has a vision for this. I know Michael Rubin has a vision for this. They spent an ungodly amount of money to make this happen. They have a huge partnership of 20 years to make it work. I think the acquisition of Topps puts them in the driver's seat, and even more so than they were before, because it's really hard to build a trading card product. It's even harder to build 10 of them. It's even harder to build 80 of them, which I think they'll lead to. So I think having this IP in their back pocket that they can go to include this stuff is beyond important. I just don't think they have enough time or people to build those types of products without acquiring somebody to do it for them.
And it's absolutely the smart thing to do. So, I mean, I think we all kind of speculated that some company's going to get bought up. I mean, the infrastructure is already there. Why not just buy the IP that's going to be a known name within this hobby? So it just makes total sense. So I'm not overly shocked or surprised by it. I mean, I never even thought about Upper Deck as being something that was going to be possibly bought. I heard years ago that I thought Upper Deck was going to buy Tops or something like that, or vice versa some years ago.
Yeah, there was something going on. I think the challenge with that is Upper Deck was always owned by the McWilliam family, and they never wanted to sell. Like, they were always adamant about not selling. But once he died and his wife kind of took the reins, I think there have been some offers on the table from what I had heard. It's always for sale, but I don't know if they've ever come to an agreement. I think right now that the value you get out of the individual licenses they have for LeBron and Tiger, I don't know what's going on with Jordan. I've always heard that he's owned part of the company as part of or equity as part of his deal, but it's like, I don't know. It's so weird.
I'm surprised they don't have a Reggie Jackson line, because he's got part ownership in that company too. So
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So, like, I don't know if Michael Jordan's influence will be available to transfer with the license if they buy Upper Deck. So, like, if Fanatics comes in and says, I want, everything you own, does Jordan come with it? I don't know. Like, same with LeBron. Does LeBron go with it? Does Tiger go with it? Because those people alone could make or break product lines. I wouldn't say break, because I think there is no break. Like, it's either make or not break, or make more.
Yeah.
And I think they're like adding those people to the fray would be just gigantic money. I mean, like, both in terms of acquiring their license, but also acquiring the ability to produce cards for them for the first time in decades, right? LeBron has had cards, it's a little different, but Jordan has been nowhere, right? Since Upper Deck stopped producing college cards.
Yeah.
And I think additionally, Tiger's on his way back. Like, there's a lot of value there, but that's not the most important thing. I think things like Exquisite, things like SPA, things like those IP brand names, I think, are still among the most valuable in the hobby.
Which is exactly what the Tops line brings to, because those names are extremely valuable to the hobby. The Chrome name, the Finest name, all of those different Bowman, all those different names have tremendous value in this hobby. So it's a very smart
history
move. And history. Exactly. So it's just it's
a lot of question marks. A lot of question marks.
Well, tomorrow morning's supposed to be an announcement. That's what
I'm curious to see I'm curious to see how that goes down. I doubt it'll tell us very much, but it's one of those things that they have to put out. And there were a lot of people who lost a lot of money on that acquisition. A lot of people lost a lot of money. And I'm curious how that plays into this, because to see that the company was basically canceled out of this acquisition because of the Fanatics news, and then they're acquired. I mean, like, the SEC should be all over this. I don't think it's big enough potatoes for it to matter, but those types of questions are just all over this, and it just reeks of craziness right now.
My wife was watching Die Hard 1, 2, and 3 the other day, so she's watching Die Hard 2, and the end of the movie. All I saw, like, I'm sure you're familiar with Die Hard 2.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the movie, they're all celebrating. They're having a great time on that plane, thinking they got away with it.
They crash right into the ground.
And then it blows up. So like that. That feels like the whole entire Tops crew was on that plane.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a good analogy. I think that there's a lot of things that have happened over the last few months since this Fanatic news has come to be that I never I've been in this hobby since I was 8. And I'm 38 right now. So, it's crazy that, in the last 5-6 months, things have gotten so insane that that's even more insane than 2010 was, with Panini coming on, even more insane than, all the things that happened as Upper Deck came on in 1989. Like, all of those things are just blips compared to what this is. This is like a whole reimagining of $1.5 billion industry. And like, the boom that's happened over these last few months since the beginning of 2020 is, spurring all of this. I never thought that would happen, let alone, what is going on to add what we're hearing about today. But this isn't a surprise. This is inevitable, right? This is Thanos.
Yeah.
And this is inevitable and it will continue, and I'm curious to see where it goes. I think the consolidation play is the right one.
What, in your opinion, what do you think is next? Like, what would be next, you think?
I'm curious to see what products they go with. Like, I'm curious to see if they're Fanatics Topps branded products, or if they're just Topps branded products, or if they make another acquisition. Like, I think one of the articles said that they can start in 2022. So that means that they can start now. Like, this could be something where, they have Topps has products on the horizon that have been coming quickly and fast. And, I'm curious how that plays out. Like, I think what's next is either a rapid fire transition from Topps to Fanatics ownership, and then, sort of going from there. But otherwise, it could be more acquisitions. It could be more announcements. I think we'll start seeing announcements like this probably every 3 to 4 months. Like, you see like Collectors Universe ramping up, right? So Collectors Universe is ramping up with acquisitions all over the place because the grading is on fire right now. And as much as I hate that that's the case,
I mean, everything from new locations to obviously in hiring, picking up new AI devices. I mean, all kinds of different things they got going on there.
Yes, I mean, like, Collectors Universe owns the grading side. They now own Card Ladder, which is value tracking.
Yep.
They own the video game stuff. They bought a video game grading thing. They own like a whole, and they're ramping up, right? They're going up this side, and then Fanatics is going up this side. Now their mountain is like 20 times as big, but it's same thing. Like, does Collector Universe continue to acquire and acquire and acquire? I think there are 3 big names out there that still have acquisition written all over them. One of them is Check Out My Cards. One of them is Upper Deck. And the other one, if you think about a company like that has value to people, it is one of the distributors. So I think, like, I don't know which one you could pick or choose, but I think those are the 3 major things that are still left to acquire. Now, Fanatics has a giant distribution network, but I think their distribution network is entirely different than what exists for the hobby. And I think if they're truly going to consolidate, maybe an acquisition of a distributor could be a breaker. They could acquire a breaker. I could see that be something that happens. Like, these announcements could come fast and furious over the next year or two. And I think, like, can you imagine if there was like an official Fanatics breaking platform? Like, that would be gigantic, right? And it would only be Fanatics people that break the cards.
Basically, kind of their goal, isn't it? All to be about Fanatics.
Exactly.
I mean, everything.
It's consolidation. Yeah, consolidation. Like, if you think about the mountains left to climb, Collectors Universe has acquired a lot of those pieces, but they will never have a trading card license, right? They're never going to produce their own trading cards. They're always a superfluous part of the hobby that has become exceptionally valuable because people say it's valuable. And then there's digital, right? There's the digital side, and there's the actual, like, card production and related activity side, which Fanatics has taken over. So there's a lot left to do. And I think acquiring things like a Check Out My Cards, like a breaker that is like one of the big breakers that does, super shady, but really big business. Like, I think that's a huge deal, right? If Fanatics can launch their own breaking platform with technology integration, money behind it, coding development, like the things that Fanatics would have access to that breakers just don't know how to, or don't have any reason to care about. Like, if they could build that part of it, like Breakers TV, which is the main breaking platform, or YouTube, like, isn't built or supported for this type of stuff. It's like a rudimentary platform, and it sucks because there's breakers out there. Like, I'm friends with Sam Smith, who runs with Card Smith's Breaks. He's integrated a lot of technology into his breaks, and I think he's set himself miles ahead, but he doesn't do the kind of business that these other breakers do because he's one guy, right? They have a whole team of, like 30 different people. And if Fanatics can acquire a breaking platform with a lot of technology involved, like, and really sort of build out a next gen of what card breaking can be, that's huge. Same thing like with Check Out My Cards, which is all about fulfillment, right? So think about integrating specific direct to consumer projects that can all be fulfilled through ComC is a huge deal. So I think, like, those are the last things that I think are on the horizon that are like imminent to me. If you're not talking about digital stuff, but Topps is a giant digital
Yeah,
platform
that's what
too.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Like, so we've always talked about that. Like, that's a big part of this acquisition too. They have NFTs, they have Topps Digital. There's just a lot of things going on there too. So that's why this acquisition makes even more sense. I haven't heard a lot of talk about that, but this digital platform is big,
Yeah.
right? Especially with the success of NFTs lately.
And if you're going to
So
go, if you're going to take it and be that next gen type of business, you know, try to present something new and different this hobby, obviously digital is the way to go, and NFTs, and that's just the way to go. I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah, it makes me, now seeing this, it makes me bummed that Topps lost the WWE license, because, you know, I've been excited because I think there needs to be a fresh start in a lot of this stuff, but now it's like it just puts it right back where it was, which is the redheaded stepchild of the hobby. It's like,
Yes.
you know, it's really tough
does.
to see that happen. And I think for a while it was like, oh, Topps isn't really going to have much, so it's good that it's going to Panini. But now Panini is going to have even less because Topps just got acquired. We'll have everything back.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned these different types of businesses out there too. What about something like a Star Stock, something like that as well? That's
the fractional ownership. Is that what that is?
No, Star Stock actually is almost like it's a stock market type of how's the best way? Imagine it being like it's like a CNN with a ticker going off all the time, up and down of the values of cards all the time, like that. So they do breaks, they do you can sell your stuff on it like a ComC, but it's almost kind of like, hey, we are now the location to go to like a stock market to figure out all the values of your cards and what's up and what's down and what's up, that kind of thing.
So is that kind of what Card Ladder is? I don't really know Card Ladder. Card Ladder is value tracking, right?
Oh, is that what it is? Okay, so I'm not familiar with it, to be honest with you, but I know Star Stock.
I'm only familiar with it because of the PSA acquisition, but gotcha. I think the Collectors Universe acquisition, like, so there are a couple of platforms that have like card value tracking software. Mm-hmm. Some of them are good, some of them are kind of just thrown together with a bunch of code, and others are like, well, we're going to layer this on top of Surface and stuff, and that's just weird.
Sure.
Paying somebody for card investment advice is just ridiculous to me. But anyways,
I saw that. I don't even want to get
no,
into that.
We're not getting into that. No, we're not. You know what I mean? Like, there's all of these types of things. So if slab stocks or Star Stocks or whatever you're talking about is kind of a similar situation to that, like I could see that being a part of it too. Like, again, I think that's kind of like still an up and coming sort of thing. That's like buying, one of those bleeding edge sort of tech companies. If you're like Dell or something like that, it's like you might want to, but that seems down the road to me. I think there are much more
it's inevitable
investments.
It's an inevitable journey, I think, for stuff like that to get to that point where it's like, hey, we've already got this, we've got that, let's incorporate this. And it just seems like it'd be a cheap acquisition to really kind of make, mold their vision a bit better, I think. But who's to say? I mean, these announcements are coming, like you said, fast and furious, and we don't even know what's coming out next. But it's going to be interesting tomorrow morning to find out what they say. I'm sure it's going to be like a generic blanket press release. I'm sure, just like, yes, you know it, we know it, it's happened. Have a nice day.
I think it'll be on CNBC. I'm sure somebody will be on TV talking about it. So I'll keep an eye out for that, because I'll definitely be watching for sure.
So, well, again, it's a quick last second. Hey, let's talk about this. And I always appreciate you coming on, man. One of my favorite people to talk to hobby with. I swear to God. Even though, we have a difference in opinion when it comes to the grading size like that. Like, I can see both sides of the fence, but even still with that, I mean, it's just a great conversation with you every time.
No, I appreciate it. It's I love talking shop, and everybody's asleep right now, so it's easy for me to hop on and talk. And it was late enough that we all got to do this. But it's always fun. Yeah, I love talking with people as much as possible. And you have happened to host the best roundtables of wrestling people, which is my current focus. So I can't really say much else.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. Maybe we'll be talking again tomorrow and find out what the hell's going on with this.
Exactly.
It's a crazy world, man. But
crazy world.
We'll talk again later, man.
All right. Thanks, Tony.
All right, we're out.